let us go back to the Zoom machine and say hello to one of the legends of the game. It's been a while since I talked to Demian Maia, one of my favorite people in MMA. And now here he is, the one and only, the legend, Demian Maia. How are you, Demian?
How are you doing, Ariel? I'm all good here in Brazil, and I'm missing, the interviews with you.
Yes. Well, we're back now, and I'm very happy to have you on the show.
Yeah,
By the way, how is life in Brazil? I know it was hit very hard with COVID. Is it getting a little bit better, or is it still tough times?
it's better now. I think it's much better. We reached a point there was like 3,000 deaths a day,
Oh,
and now it's like around 500, something like that. And we have a big country like US, so I think it's getting better.
okay. 500 still, very depressing, but hopefully.
Of course, yeah, of course, yeah, of course. Even one dead but I mean, it's much better than was.
Right.
It was.
So, Damien, a lot of questions surrounding your career. I wanted to catch up with you and see where you're at. Of course, we last saw you in June. You had that fight against Bilal Muhammad. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way. And then shortly thereafter, UFC President Dana White said that it seemed like the end for you in the UFC. Although you said that there was one fight left on your contract and you wanted to fight Nathan Diaz. What's the status of your career in the UFC? Are you officially not a UFC fighter anymore?
Actually, that was my last fight. The fight against Belal was the last one in my contract. So after that fight, I had no fights anymore. So I was waiting because my goal actually, coming back a couple years ago, my goal was to finish my career in that fight against Ben Askren. That was the last fight. So when I was going to fight Usman, we renegotiated the contract, and I was talking with the UFC, and they said, "Okay, how many fights you want more?" And I said, "Okay, I don't remember. I think 3 or 4 fights, and the last one would be that one I get in Singapore with Ben Askren." And as I was in a 2 wins streak. I won 2 fights, and I was going to that fight in Singapore. I said, "Oh, I think I want to have a couple more fights after that." So we renegotiate with the UFC, and they agree, and we agree in 2 more fights after the Askren's fight, which was the last one. And because all this crazy world that we live right now with the problem with the pandemic and this kind of things, I was like, man, I don't want to finish my career right now, and I think I have one more left. And fortunately, I was able to fight with audience, which was good in Phoenix. But I didn't think, yeah, of course, was not the way, like you said, it was not the way that I want to do. The way that I want to be in that fight. I didn't think I was, in my best. Of course, Bilal, he was great that day. He did all the game plan perfectly, but I think I could, perform better. So I said I want to do one more if, of course, Dana and the UFC give me the chance. So I think this depends a lot in event in Brazil, and that's the problem with the world right now. We're not having events outside of US. I mean, we have Abu Dhabi, but we don't have in Brazil. And I think if we had something in Brazil, then the chance would be bigger. But I don't know. But what I want to say is that I'm on. I want to do one more. I want to do one more for sure to finish my career.
Why one more?
Because I'm pretty happy with the things that I accomplished in my career. I think right now I change in my prospect of the things. So I'm very focused on my academy in Brazil, the Escola Demian Maia Jiu-Jitsu, and expanding first in Brazil and then around the world. And so it's the business side. I coming back now. I'm gonna start to come back for this, giving more seminars that I was holding a lot. I got a lot of people asking me for seminars, but I was holding a little bit because of the training. I wanna do some jiu-jitsu fights, sport jiu-jitsu fights, like probably no gi, and there's a lot of events asking me for that. Actually, after my last fight, Chael shoot me a message, and I was inside the airplane coming back to Brazil, and he said, "You want to fight? Do you want to fight Usman or Ferguson in a no-gi fight?" And I said, "Who is talking?" Because I miss his, I lost his number. And he said, "This is Chael, the guy that destroyed you."
Oh man.
And he's a nice guy, I like him. So he invited me to submission in the ground. Then Spider, my sponsor, they want me to fight there, and also Polaris. And there's many events in Brazil, BJJ Bad, BJJ Star, and other ones. So Flow Grappling, I just spoke with somebody from Flow last week. So let's say it's something that I want to do. I didn't do that for so many years. The last time I fought jiu-jitsu was 2007. So since I started the UFC, I pretty much was doing MMA. And plus, I'm doing a lot of instructionals now. I just released one at BJJ Fanatics, and I'm really, really excited to develop a lot of things that I've been doing in my game and learn how to teach that, to put in some instructional. So there's so many things going on that I don't think I can, be much longer doing MMA. But one fight would be great. That's why.
So the reason I asked for one, I was like, why not just, you said you wanted to retire when you fought Askren. At this point, you have a lot going on, and you can continue doing jiu-jitsu. Why even stick around for one more fight? Was the reason why I said one. Like, why? You're 43. What more do you have to prove? I mean, you're not going to fight for a UFC title, obviously. So, like, why not just go and enjoy your life? What's the motivation?
What's the motivation? There's one motivation, of course, is to finish my career with a win. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest one. So, I want to give myself a chance again to go there and win. And especially because last fight was not just about the win or win or lose, but, the way that the fight was pretty, how can I say, not exciting. Was not a fight that I would like to be like my last fight. And plus I can get the same number of wins that Donald Cerrone has, because I'm already the Brazilian with most wins in the UFC. But if I can win one more, then I'm gonna tie with Donald Cerrone for the most win in the UFC, not just Brazilians but all the nationalities. Where else? I think it's pretty much like I wanna finish my career in a better mood.
Well, do you have any sort of insight as to whether or not the UFC is interested in giving you this other fight?
They didn't say nothing, and I don't think right now they are interesting. I think, if you ask me about chance, I would say like 20% chance or something like that. I don't think, like Dana said in the last one, this might be the end. But I know things change quickly in the UFC. I know, for instance, if they have an event in Brazil, they need big names in Brazil, people who attract the audience. So, and they, if you look right now, like Cigano is out of the UFC, and Anderson is out of the UFC. Rodrigo and Rogério Nogueira, they retired. Lyoto is in other event. Who is in Brazil? There is Aldo, the names that, can hold a main event or co-main event. There is Aldo, there is myself, there is Charles, there is Durinho,
Amanda.
But I think Amanda, of course, yeah. But the ones that really, like, I'm not talking about the level of fighting. Of course, if you talk about like Durinho and Vicente, Luque, they are great names nowadays. But I think about people, names that people know because they did a lot of main media here in Brazil, like big media stuff for many years. It's myself, Aldo, Amanda, and Charles, I think.
Yeah,
that's the name that I see. So this can change, it depends if the UFC. It's a business. If UFC thinks that they can use me here, I'm ready to be used here.
What if another organization comes and wants to have your retirement fight there? Would you be open to that, or do you only want it to be in the UFC?
My goal is to finish my career in the UFC. It's the only big organization that I've been in my life. Plus, another thing that I didn't say, I'm doing some stuff for UFC Brazil down here in Brazil. So I'm doing some stuff, some little, how can I say, sketches from the UFC Brazil here. I did one, and then I did the second one is go on the Brazilian YouTube channel of UFC Brazil YouTube channel this week is in Portuguese. And so I want to stick with the company. I think that that's the company that gave me everything I have, and it's something that I have really a deep relationship and a big tie. So I would like to stay here.
Do you regret, in hindsight, not walking away after the Askren fight and going out with that victory? Do you wish you would have done that?
Mm, no, because I think now, of course, if you talk just about the fighter, the athlete side, of course, would be better to finish in like in a high way, in a big way like that, because it was a big win, main event against a big fighter. But I think was important for me in terms of financially to do these two fights, because this last contract that I did, since Usman is the best contract of my life, so was important for me, not just for me, but for my family, for my kids, for the future, to do these two fights. And I'm not saying that I just went there because of that. I give like every if I'm not. That is something that I'm very, very sincere to myself. If I'm not willing to go and give my best and do my best in a training camp, not just during the fight, I would stop. That's for sure. The financial part is important, but it's not the number one. So these two fights, Durinho fight and Belal fight, I did my best during the camp. I did my best that I could during the fight week, during the fight. So didn't go my way, but I was excited to fight. I was excited doing the camp. I was doing everything that I could during the fight, studying, training, and so that as I'm feeling that I'm feeling well, I'm not feeling that I'm losing performance. So I said, okay, I can fight, and financially is important, of course. But as soon as I think that I cannot do anymore, then I would stop. And that's the reason you asked one more, because now I start to look towards other stuff like the business side of my gym here in Brazil, the instructionals that I'm releasing now with the Fanatics, the stuff that I'm doing to UFC Brazil here as a journalist, as a media guy, the seminars around the world. So all this stuff is too many things, and plus the family and the kids.
Yes, and we know you have a degree in journalism, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So now you get to actually sort of use it and do the stuff on the media side as well. You had a year and change, a year and 3 months, 15 months total between the Burns fight and the Muhammad fight.
Yes.
Maybe in your younger days that time off isn't such a big deal, but I would imagine as you get older, it's a little tougher when you're taking that kind of time off. Did you feel like
It
you weren't
is.
quite yourself in the not to have you offer any excuses for the
Of
performances,
course,
but
of
did
course.
you feel like the layoff affected you?
I always worry about that, but I think it's the opposite for me, at least, that you said. I think when I was younger, I would be much more worried about that.
Hmm.
Now, with my experience, I think I could hold that 1 year and 15 months, right? And but that's the longest stretch that I have been without fighting since I start in the UFC. And even in my career as a jiu-jitsu fighter, I think I never stayed so long
Yeah.
inactive. And of course, this plays a role. no, I don't want to give an excuse, but this plays a role. But I think the biggest role was like the world, how the world was, like you couldn't travel. So uh, normally in 1 year I would go like 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times to New Jersey to wrestling training. I actually remember when I was there training wrestling, I went to your
Mm-hmm.
studio,
Mm-hmm.
was still in New York.
Yep.
And for these 15 months that I was supposed to be, regaining and sharpening my wrestling, I was just in Brazil. Cody, my wrestling, one of my wrestling coaches came down here, but it's different than you being totally immersed in a wrestling world. Like, I've been trained with guys like, I've been in a room with guys like Olympic guys like Frank Chimizu and Helen Margolis, all these guys that I saw them training by my side. I wasn't training with them, but I was in the same room. And then in Columbia University with all the kids that just do wrestling. So I think that could sharp my wrestling a little bit more, and maybe I wouldn't lose that singles that would be more sharp, the singles that I was getting in Belal, and I wasn't able to take him down. Maybe if I was with my wrestling more sharp, I would be able to take him down more times.
When you started your MMA career, Damian, did you think at 43 you would still be fighting? Was this part of the plan, or did it last longer than you expected?
Yeah, it didn't last long. I remember my goal was to finish me at 40 years old when I
Okay.
started in the UFC. And then as I'm feeling well, I kept doing, and just this. If you ask me before the pandemic, so for sure I would say 2020 was going to be my last year, because I did just one fight that year, but normally I was doing 2, 3 times a year, 2, 3 fights a year. So 2020 would be my last year, and then with this all these things that are happening, then we stretch to 21.
What would you say, um, up until this point, the highest moment of your career, the achievement, the fight, the moment that you're most proud of?
I think there is three very important points. That one, when I did my 50 win in the UFC against Chael Sonny, because I never lost till that time, and I went in the UFC and I submit every single fight till the fight number 5, and I was 11-0, so that was very important for me. Then when I dropped to welterweight and had the first win streak, like 3 wins, and then I had 2 losses, and that was kind of tough. I lost to Rory in a nice fight, and I remember coming back to Brazil and thinking, man, that's it. I'm never gonna fight for the title anymore. And then I just, okay, let's keep fighting, let's keep doing that. That's what I like to do, and I'm feeling well. And after that day, I won 7 fights in a row, and I think the fight against Condit was in Canada, in Vancouver, was very iconic for me also, because it was the sixth, the fight number 6, and I thought after that I was going to fight for the title. Of course, I fought no more against Masvidal after that, but the Condit fight was the way that it was, like a quick fight, a submission, everything went my way. Main event, everything was great, and I remember the TV. I think because the fights with previous that in Brazil, at least, they were kind of long, and the how we call the spot that they have in the TV in Brazil was going to finish in the middle of my fight or something like that. So, but the fight was so quick that was like 2 minutes, that when I submit, they lifted my arms, then
Oh, wow.
the sign in Brazil drop, and they didn't. My friends even they didn't saw my interview or nothing. But if the fight was a little bit longer, I think it would the sign would go off before the fight finished. So it was kind of all perfect.
That's cr
And of course, yeah, and of course the fight with Askren, because that was a big challenge for me to fight a guy that I knew is a guy who is good in my game. He's good in taking down people. He is all my wrestler friends, they really admire him. They say he's one of the most innovative wrestling of all time. And you see, a lot of people say, Askren, they talk about Askren now, like he was not tough, but Askren was great. He lost to Masvidal in that fight, in that he got that knee that everybody can get, when you shoot it. And he lost to me, but besides that, he was winning, winning, winning. And even if people think he doesn't have a beautiful style, he's very efficient, and he's a great athlete. He being an Olympic athlete, so he's a great grappler. And everybody was asking, who is the best grappler? Who is the best grappling? He's the guy, like myself, that when we go inside a fight, everybody know what we're gonna do, and it's hard to stop. So I was pretty curious and anxious and nervous to see what's going to happen, and everything went the way that I like it, and that's those three fights were very important for me.
Yeah, you mentioned Askren. It's unfortunate that his legacy has changed a little bit because people are just looking at the last fight against Jake Paul, and that doesn't seem very fair. He was one of the best and one of the
Exactly.
toughest. And I hope that part of your legacy, and I don't know if this will be the case because people forget, is yeah, I mean, like you could look at the fights and the moments and this and that. But to me, part of your legacy is you continuously fought the guys that no one else wanted to fight. And the UFC, I felt like, put you in a lot of fights. I mean, even recently with Khamzat, they were always putting you in those spots, Usman, Masvidal, and you would, and without much complaining, it seemed like you would always take those fights. And I think you should be applauded for that. I'm happy that the Khamzat fight didn't come to fruition. I don't feel like that made a lot of sense for you. Were you looking forward to that? Did you want to have that fight?
No, I don't think, like you said, didn't make sense. Of course, if, we could negotiate, and like I said, I want to do one more fight. If they would give one more fight, and that before the Belal's fight, okay, let's do this fight and do one more. So everything we can negotiate, but I don't think, like you said, is a fight who made sense at that time. But I'm proud, like you said. I always, since I fought Anderson, I never came back. I always fought the top fighters in the world, and that's people sometimes they don't understand because Eduardo, my manager, he always say for a fan, doesn't matter if you win. The guy who works in the bar in the corner here or in the top five fighter in the world. But for us, and you of course understand that it's totally different. So even you see Anderson, people say, Anderson is done. But you see his last fights, he fought Adesanya, he fought all top guys. So he didn't win, but who he was fighting. And now he goes and fights the fight that he just fought Tito, and then people say, "Man, Anderson is great. He came back. He didn't came back. He was just, he's still Anderson." But of course, if you put him to fight Adesanya right now, Adesanya is what Anderson was a few years ago. But people gotta understand that we are in the biggest MMA league in the world with the biggest, the best fighters in the world. To be a top 15 fighter in the UFC is totally different than people imagine or understand. And when you fight a top 15 guy in the UFC, it's different than fight any other event.
So to be clear and in conclusion, Demian, you would like to fight one more time. You want it to be in the UFC. At what point do you say, like, okay, I'm going to move on? Like, you're not going to sit around and wait forever. What's the deadline here where you want this to happen?
That's a good question, Earl. I didn't think about that actually. I for sure I want to fight. I'm not gonna sit waiting. I will fight these jiu-jitsu fights that I want. Uh, I don't know. Maybe send a message to Dana
Okay.
and ask him. But I don't mind about waiting a little bit if we don't have an event in Brazil. So
Like you would wait till next
it's a
year?
good, yes,
You would.
for
But
sure.
you're not going to sit around
Yeah.
waiting like a year and a half or something, right? At some point.
No, no, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think at one point I will need to, sit with my coach and say, okay, that's it, and let's move on. But I'm all right moving on. Actually, I'm in the transition phase. And like I said, I will do those jiu-jitsu fights, but to really sit and call the meeting and say, okay, I'm done with MMA is something that I didn't think about. But yeah, maybe, last year is a good deadline.
Okay, and if it does end,
Next year.
no regrets, right? Like you're saying you'd be okay with that. You would like for there to be one more fight, but you would also be at peace if this is it.
Yeah, you know what, Ariel? I always say that is not just a cliche or something that I say because I wanna look cool. But when I started to train jiu-jitsu, it's something that I said when in 2017, after the 7 week streak, I went to California. I was teaching there before Woodley fight. I didn't know I was going to fight Woodley, and there was an event that Rickson Gracie organized to give some trophies for the jiu-jitsu community, and was more like sport jiu-jitsu. But he gave me a trophy of the biggest guy in the jiu-jitsu, like representative of jiu-jitsu in the MMA in this era. And I was very happy. I was thinking when I was sitting, they told me he was going to give me this trophy because I didn't know before. And I was sitting and I said, I need to say something. And then I realized one thing is all about, the things that everybody says about what's your mission, what's your purpose, this kind of thing. And remember that when I start to train jiu-jitsu, I start to train. I did MMA even before jiu-jitsu, but it didn't fight. So the 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 reason I started to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is because I want to be an MMA champion or a Vale Tudo champion at that time. So for me, that was the goal. The goal was not to be a Jiu-Jitsu fighter. The goal was to be a Vale Tudo fight MMA, Vale Tudo or MMA champion. And then I started to fight Jiu-Jitsu. Well, I won a lot of championships. I got in the UFC. And UFC, is so big that the fan base grows a lot. A lot of fans, they come to me and they speak to me like, man, I started to train jiu-jitsu because of you. I changed my life because of you. One day, a very, very important thing happens in my life. I was in Las Vegas that shows that how we call when you have the MMA fair, the big fair
Oh,
in
the
Vegas.
Fan Expo.
Finance, well,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was sitting giving autographs, and a friend came to me and said, "Man, can you sign this for me and this for a friend?" I said, "Of course." And they said, "This friend of mine, he loves you, and this will help him a lot." And I asked why, and he said, "Because my friend he's on coma, but he can hear and he can see and he loves you." So, things like that start to change my mindset. Like when I was walking in a shopping mall in São Paulo, somebody said, "Man, less of your fight." I had a friend, he was on drugs, but he loves you. And he said, if you win, he would leave the drugs and come back to jiu-jitsu training because he was a jiu-jitsu practitioner before. And you did, and he came back and his life changed. So I realized how many power you have over the people's lives because of this platform. And not just here, I saw not just people talking to me, but I saw people come inside the gym and one way and change their lives, people who had problems with many things. And so I started to think about this, people always talking about purpose and these kind of things. And I was always like, what's my purpose? Because for me, it was just winning fights, be the best athlete, be the best one, be the best one. So I realized that I could use the jiu-jitsu and all these things to change help people change also. And I think that's a good purpose, that I said, okay, I find it something bigger than just myself, just winning. So in that day at the Hickson's event, I said when I start to train jiu-jitsu was just the middle of the way, and the end is the way is was the jiu-jitsu was the middle of the way, and the end was to be an MMA champion. And nowadays I realize that to be an MMA champion or a fighter is the middle of the way, and the end is jiu-jitsu and helping people. So that's why you ask me why, if I'm content, if I'm happy with what I did. Yeah, I am, because I have a big fan base, and a lot of people came to this world because of me. A lot of people changed their lives. And I will keep doing that, through my seminars, through my academy in Brazil, through the affiliate academies, through my courses, all this thing, all my relationship with the jiu-jitsu community and the MMA community.
Well, I wish you the best, Damian. I look forward to seeing if you get that next fight or that last fight. Obviously, you're very busy and you're doing great things in the jiu-jitsu world, and I'm happy that you're doing things on the media side for MMA. So keep in touch, my friend. Let us know how it goes, and if you
I
need
will.
anyone to help you get that last fight, just call me, and I'll make it
I
happen for you.
will.
Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
always a great pleasure to be with you here. Like, I remember the first time was at Anderson's fight, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
we did some interviews, and soon I go back to US, and I go visit you,
absolutely,
the
my
new
friend.
studio.
Anytime. Obrigado.
De nada, thank you.
All right,
Bye.
there he is, the legend, Damian Maia.